Hands. The bane of every artist's existence. Not mine though. I love drawing hands. The palm, the fingers, but I want to be better at drawing them. There's something so ethereal about an extremely well-drawn or well-painted hand. So how do we get better at drawing hands? I'm breaking this up into 3 main sections: Constructive Anatomy, Comparative Drawing, and Cold Hard Practice. If either of these terms are mysterious to you, don't worry, all will be revealed in due time. Which is right now. Constructive Anatomy is a method of breaking down complex anatomy into simple shapes, making it by definition simpler and easier to handle. Then we can go from those simple shapes into the more detailed anatomy we know and love. Typically, you divide parts into boxes, cylinders, spheres, and cones. I live and breathe by the philosophy that if you can draw these primitive shapes in perspective and with proper form, you can draw anything. Everything on Earth is made up of these simple shapes. Everything from cars, bikes, horses, your favorite Digimon. Gosh, it's beautiful. So, how do we actually break up a hand into these shapes? Starting with a reference photo, I'm first indicating where the palm is with a box. This gets us a grasp on the perspective of the hand we're drawing, which part is facing the camera, and a starting point for our fingers and thumb. It's also very important to keep in mind that the hand is rounded, so I'm giving our box kind of a bevel here. Important also to note that there's no hard and set rule regarding this. Every artist breaks things down differently, or perhaps doesn't even break them down. It's very much up to personal preference and what works for you. Next up, I'm adding some lines to indicate where our fingers and our thumb will be placed, moving on to adding spheres for the knuckles. Next up, I'm adding cylinders for each segment of each finger, and these are critically important to describe the form and perspective of the fingers. The way you place the lines along your cylinders will describe where they're facing and how much they're tilted and can change everything. Now, you can take the simple shapes further if you'd like, but I think this is in a good spot to push to finish. I'm getting rid of most of our construction site here, filling in the softer tissue of the hand. The skeleton we built gives me a really good base, making the process fairly straightforward. Our hand is done and we're moving on to our second method. Comparative drawing. This one's a little more straightforward but still very useful. Comparative drawing is the method of comparing lengths and angles within your reference and applying them to your drawing. I've pre-cooked this drawing in advance like Rachel Ray would, and this is the reference. As you can see, it's not 100% accurate. Not that it needs to be, but the closer the better, right? So how do we fix this other than just looking at our reference and hoping for the best? The first thing I'm going to be doing here is establishing a clear landmark, right? We could, for example, use the palm here. If the palm is this long, we can compare other lengths to this. Is the index finger as long as our palm? In our drawing, no. In the reference, looks like it might be a little bit longer. We could double check right here, copy this down, and it is in fact not as long as the palm either there, so we could establish that the index finger is correct. Then we could use this as another safe landmark to compare angles to our other fingers. For example, is our middle finger at the same angle here, or is it more of a steeper incline? Which it looks like it is to me. Now, you don't even have to draw the lines on the reference here, that is just for demonstration purposes. You could just do this in your head as you're drawing, of course. So this means that our middle finger is too long. We could also establish this a second way by comparing the angle of the fingers here to our reference, which has more of a curve, like so, meaning that our fingers here need to be corrected. Our fingers now have a matching curve to the reference and looks way better. Another thing we could look out for here is if the pinky is aligned with the thumb, which it is in our drawing, but not so much in the reference. The thumb is way longer. You can also see here on the palm ends right there and crosses into the thumb. Here the palm ends and the thumb is nowhere near the edge. And this is comparative drawing or comparative measuring. It's primarily used for figure drawing and drawing from life. And you may think, how will this help me when I don't have a reference to go off of? When you draw something from reference using this method, you're building up your visual library and discovering patterns that you can pull from in the future. If X finger is consistently as long as the palm, you can pull from that in your future drawings from memory. Now, it's of course not easy and it takes time, which leads to point 3. Cold hard practice. But before that, a word from today's sponsor. I have no sponsor. Please come hang out on my Twitch channel. I do art, 3D modeling, and animation about 5 days a week over at twitch.tv/pigeon_child.com. Is there a .com? No. twitch.tv/pidian_child. Cold hard practice. This part is inescapable. In the end, techniques and study methods will only get you so far without actually putting in the hours. I set out to do 100 hands in one sitting, live on Twitch, you know, for company. These hands got hands. Yeah, they do. Alright. I don't know how long this might take. But I mean, I don't have anything else planned for the next 5 hours. It took 10 hours. I think the amount of detail you sink into each hand is gonna be the hard part. Like, where do you stop it, right? Because you can't do like 100 photorealistic one. That's gonna take forever. But you know, I want to make them readable as hands. I think that's the main goal. And I think that speaks a lot for how to practice. Do you do an insane amount of quick hands? Do you do a few extremely detailed hands, or a mix of both? Both feels like the obvious answer. You do quick hands to get the gesture down, to put in the time to get used to them, and then you do detailed, slow, meticulous studies to perfect them and learn the most glossed over parts, such as nails, veins, tendons, etc. I'm also applying the techniques we talked about earlier. So I'm doing a mix of constructive anatomy and visual comparison, where not only am I using the boxes and cylinders, I'm also comparing where the fingers line up on this hand, right? So you can see these two are in a straight line, and there's a bit of a divot before it's the next finger, and then a divot again, like this little curve here. And that's what I'm trying to apply in my own drawing as well. Okay. That was hand number 4? Oh, 5. Sick. Get on to hand number 6. And we did 5 hands in 25 minutes. That means 5 minutes per hand. That's not very good. That's not very fast at all. Now, how fast can you expect improvement? How much do you improve in 100 hands? And realistically, I should get faster and better with each hand, if you think about it. But don't think about it too hard. I definitely think I improved. How much though is of course relative. I've studied hands extensively before, and in my experience, the better you get, the harder it is to see noticeable improvement. Versus when you're just starting out, you see tons of progress and it's super exciting. We're getting faster and faster, so what, we did 16 hands in 1 hour? I can't do the math. If 15 hands is 1 hour, how much is 100 hands? Someone do the math for me, thank you. 6. That's too slow. That's way too slow. I can't be here for 6 hours. So I have to get faster. I have to get smart, starring Steve Carell. And then in the YouTube video, we lie and say this took 24 hours because it'll be way better clickbait. Alright, we're approaching the halfway point of the hands here, and here's a clip from stream I don't know how to interweave into the script, so enjoy. Only 2 times I've had an accident I just straight up shit myself. Yeah, that's valid. Dude, I feel like it's easier to shit yourself than it is to piss yourself, and I don't know why that is. It's easier to hold back piss than it is to hold back shit. Sometimes shit is just so ferocious, you know? Smaller shards are better. Yeah, that's true. For the remainder of our hands, I essentially went non-verbal, trying to get through them in a reasonable amount of time while picking up information where I could, while also just gaining experience. For the last 10 hands though, I decided to do them with no reference to apply what I've learned, and it was a surprising amount of fun. Still extremely challenging even after 90 hands from reference, but they definitely read as hands, and I think they would give a good starting point to find reference and refine to finish. Thank you for watching. The whole drawing process for the hands and the fun little birds for the video infographics were streamed live on my Twitch channel, on which I'm currently live about 5 days a week doing drawing animation in 3D. Hope to see you there, and please subscribe here on YouTube as well.